Greetings, friends around the world. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy channel. Are you aware of beast prophecies and gold? Well, we're going to get to those in a few moments, so I want to give a little bit of background about the United States, Europe, and gold. Basically, the United States used to have the world's largest stores of gold, but that started to change. I'd like to read a warning from the old Plain Truth magazine back from 1961. Germany, Japan have the largest surpluses of gold and dollars. If foreign investors demanded gold for their dollars, adds up to the staggering revelation that the U.S., richest nation in the world, is bordering on bankruptcy. What does this mean? The United States supposedly didn't go bankrupt back then. Well, what happened was the United States dollar used to be convertible into gold. In other words, you could take dollars and convert them to get so much gold. Well, in the 1960s, the French decided to do that. They decided to take the dollars they had and convert those into gold. They wanted the United States to turn them into gold. The United States grudgingly did so. But the United States didn't want to keep doing that because the United States was going to run out of gold if they kept doing stuff like this. So back in 1971, then U.S. President Richard Nixon took the United States off the gold standard, which means that if you have a U.S. dollar, it's a note payable only in another piece of paper that looks just like it. They don't convert it to gold. It's not required that the government does that anymore, and so they don't do it. Well, what was the U.S. dollar backed by? Well, basically, around the same time, the United States made a deal with Saudi Arabia that said, basically, price oil in dollars, so then people with their dollars can go and get oil. And while it's not an official, this dollar equals so much oil, the reality is, for the past several decades, most oil in the world has been bought and sold by the use of U.S. dollars, so it's given the dollar some kind of a value. But what about gold itself? Well, since the United States went off the gold standard, the United States kept increasing debt. Actually, now to the point, the United States is the most indebted nation in the world. Now, I'd like to read something from the old Good News magazine from 1979. Of course, since gold is regarded as a disaster hedge by many investors, prudence might dictate that perhaps a small fraction of your liquid assets be in gold. And you've got nations such as Russia and China, which have been greatly increasing their gold reserves. And then you also have the Europeans. As far as Europeans go, back in 1971, the old Plain Truth magazine had a few comments about that as well. So let me read those. The European common currency appears to be the most likely successor to the dollar in this long line of monetary dynasties. Europe is the only continent with sufficient gold backing. In a world of supreme powers, there must be some standard to finance international trade and domestic currency. Gold has the confidence of more people than any other standard, especially in Europe. Of course, that was decades ago. In the 21st century, is the European continent the place that has the most gold to back itself up? Well, actually, yes. There was a report that came out in March of 2019. And let's put this chart up. I've got the chart from Wikipedia, but it's based on results that came out in March of 2019. You see the United States is the leader. Then you see Germany, the IMF, Italy, France, Russia, China, Switzerland, Japan, Netherlands, India, European Central Bank, Republic of China, that would be Taiwan, Portugal, skip down here, we'll skip the UK, etc., Spain, Austria, Belgium. Well, actually, if you add up the total of all those continental European powers, it ends up being 11,586.6 tons. And that doesn't count the European nations that aren't in the top 20. So the Europeans do have the most gold. Now there's something else that the old Plain Truth magazine had in a different article in 1981. And I'd like to kind of skim over this. Basically, this article, you can see, says, most Americans are asleep at the switch. What's happening? It's time for self-centered America to wake up before our allies become our enemies. Envision a startling future of Europe, a union surpassing both the United States and Soviet Union in economic strength, possessing for the first time worldwide political power and influence. One news source recently called it an enormous, physically powerful beast. A new Europe controlling perhaps half the world trade by exclusive arrangements with dozens of nations who produce raw materials. A United States of Europe possessing one single currency, a currency so strong that it could replace the U.S. dollar as the kingpin currency of the world trade. Now you say, well, that was written a long time ago. That's true. But since that came out, by the way, the Europeans do have their own currency. And I found it interesting that somebody called Europe the beast, because the Bible does talk about Europe being the beast. As far as the comment about allies becoming enemies, that's actually consistent with what the Bible warns about in Lamentations chapter 1, verses 1 through 2. Now, one of the reasons I decided to do this particular message is someone I know sent me an email from a company called Swiss America. Now, before I comment any further, I do not have any connection with Swiss America. I've never bought anything from Swiss America. I'm not recommending. I don't get any cut from Swiss America. But I just want to read a couple of things that Swiss America reported. The interesting fact is that the European central banks, together with the Asian ones, have been the most aggressive in their purchases, this is of gold. Is this fear of a euro crisis and currency wars? In reality, and this is especially true in Europe, behind the great maneuvers with gold reserves, there is not only the traditional protective shield against major risks, there's also a call for opportunity. March 29th, resurrection of the gold standard in the banking world. Well, I don't believe that March 29th of 2019 is the resurrection of the gold standard for the world. There are hints that more and more nations in the world are getting involved in this. For example, earlier this year, Romania proposed getting its gold back for the United Kingdom. Hungary, in 2018, repatriated gold from the United Kingdom. Netherlands, Austria, Germany also been repatriating gold and adding to their gold reserves, partially because of patriotism and nationalism, partially because of Brexit, partially because of concerns about the United States, sanctions, etc. They've been doing it. And of course, Russia and China have also been doing this for various reasons. Now, the Bible shows because of debt, the United States will collapse. I'm not going to read that, but it's in Habakkuk 2, verses 6 through 8. But I'd also like to read something else from the Bible. This is from the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 11, verse 39. And I'll read this from the New King James Version of the Bible. Now consider that the U.S. dollar has been the primary source of financial stability, essentially, for the world since World War II. The Europeans prefer their currency to be that, but right now people have been sort of comfortable with the U.S. dollar, though the sanctions issues are forcing people, some nations, to look elsewise. But what's going to happen when the U.S. dollar collapses? And it will collapse. Well, I believe that the Europeans are going to say, you know what? Having a gold-backed currency will be a way to get people to have confidence in a different currency once they can't rely on the United States currency. Now, I'd like to read Daniel chapter 11, verse 39. Thus he shall act against the strongest fortresses of the foreign god, which he shall acknowledge, and advance its glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and to divide the land for gain. Now, the he is talking about is the European beast known as the King of the North in Daniel 11. And it's not only land that he's going to divide for gain. He's going to be able to plunder the United States and accumulate gold, such as whatever gold still might be remaining in places like Fort Knox. Now, furthermore, let me make it clear. The Bible shows that gold will be valuable during the Great Tribulation. If you're in Daniel, go to the next verse. Verse 40 says, at the time of the end. We're talking here during the time of the Great Tribulation. And we see some things that this particular king does. And in verse 43 it says, he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver and all the precious things of Egypt. Again, this happens during the time of the Great Tribulation. As far as Egypt goes, it does have gold. Now, as far as Europe goes, I'd like to go to the book of Revelation. Revelation chapter 18. Read prophecy about end-time Babylon. And it's just end. Verse 10, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come, and the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her. For no one buys their merchandise anymore, merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet, every kind of citron wood, every kind of object of ivory, and every kind of object of most precious wood, bronze, iron, marble, and cinnamon, incense, fragrant oil, and frankincense, wine and oil, fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, and bodies and souls of men. Now, this is showing us that during a great tribulation, prior to the destruction of Babylon, they were trading with many precious things, including gold. Now, doesn't mean that gold will always go up in value. I want to make that part clear. It's going to have ups and downs, and I think when the peace deal of Daniel 9:27 happens, you'll see a reduction probably in the price of gold. But the reality is, the Bible does show that there's going to be gold during the time of the beast power. And I also suspect, with all the vast wealth of the Vatican, it may help prop up the Europeans with some kind of financial crisis, as well as to support their currency ultimately. Now, I'd like to read some Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic prophecies regarding the end times and that touch on gold. The first one is from somebody called St. Andrew, Fool for Christ, from the 4th century. This king will rule. Happiness will reign in the world as it did in the days of Noah. People will become very rich. The entire world will fear this king. He will pursue all persons of the Jewish religions out of Constantinople, and the people will rejoice like in the time of Noah until the deluge came. God will reveal to this king all the gold wherever it happened to lay concealed from his view. So there is an Orthodox prophecy, supposedly back to the 4th century, saying that the time of Noah will come again, and it'll be a good time, and that people will have gold, and this particular king, the king of the north, they call him the great monarch. I consider him somebody to be warned about, that he's going to accumulate gold. Now, Jesus, by the way, warned against somebody, or the time of the end, with things being like the day of Noah. So if you go to Luke chapter 17, starting in verse 26, Jesus says, "And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. They ate, they drank, they married wives, they were given to marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all." Jesus is warning that people were going to feel like just before the time of the flood, where they could just do whatever they wanted, they were doing everything their own way. Well, this Eastern Orthodox prophecy indicates that's a good thing. Jesus warned that it's not. Furthermore, let me read a couple other prophecies. Emperor Leo the Philosopher, early 10th century. "You will amass the gold of nations, and you will be the leader of surrounding powers, and those that are near will prostrate themselves before your feet." This is a reference to one that they call the great monarch, which I believe is the beast of Revelation 13, the beast of the sea, also the king of the north of Daniel 11. But this particular Emperor Leo was looking forward to this. And then there's something else that was to Emperor Manuel II. "Upon the command of the good emperor, they will go and discover treasures of gold and silver, and this will be offered as a gift to the pious ones. Later on, more and more valuable treasures will be found, and the emperor will do with those treasures likewise." Now, let me comment for everybody, but also specifically Roman Catholics. You might consider those predictions sound like prophecies related to the Antichrist power. According to them, the beast and the Antichrist, well, the beast and the Antichrist, according to the Bible, are going to work together. But let me read something from a couple of Catholic sources. St. Ephraim, there's St. Ephraim. "Antichrist will use worldly goods as bait. He will entice many Christians with money and goods to apostatize. The devil will help him find all the hidden treasures of the world, even those in the bottom of the ocean. With those treasures, he will attain greater success for the reign of Satan than at any other time in past centuries." This is from Catholic Prophecy book, and you see it's warning that the Antichrist power is going to find all this wealth and gold, yet we find that Emperor Manuel said this was a good thing. Furthermore, there's another one from another one of their saints, Saint Matilda. "Antichrist will, through base and false stratagems, with the presence of gold and gems, attain influence over the worldly princes. They will look to him as their Lord and God." So does the great monarch amass gold with God's help? or like certain Orthodox prophecies indicate, or does he amass gold with the help of Satan? Certain Catholic prophecies and the Bible, by the way, suggest he's going to do. Of course, the answer should be obvious to anyone who believes the Bible. The Bible does not say some great king is going to find all this gold and this is a good thing. The Bible warns about the one who's going to be getting the gold from Egypt and all the rest. And the Bible is also clear that those who amass gold in the end times will find it's not the answer. The New Testament in the book of James, chapter 5, starting verse 1 says, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver are corroded, and their corrosion will be a witness against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up treasure in the last days." So there's a warning. Now, I'm not a gold bug, okay? I don't have all this confidence in gold, but I do know that the Bible says that after the US dollar is worth nothing, gold still will be. Have no doubt about it. The Bible is clear that during the time of the Great Tribulation, that nations around the world are going to value gold. There will not be US dollar prominence. The Babylonian European Empire is going to amass and accumulate gold. It's something that's going to happen, and right now we see the Europeans, the continental Europeans, have actually more gold than any other power on the earth. Once they take over the United States, they'll probably end up with the United States gold as well, which I believe will temporarily back their currency to lead to the prosperity that the Bible warns is going to happen under the time of Mystery Babylon the Great. So right now, what are we seeing? Nations around the world accumulating gold. The United States acting like it's not so important. The time is going to come when the European beast power will rise up, it will enforce its rules. It's going to have gold to back up certain things, bribe people, etc. That's going to end, of course, as the Bible also warns. So don't be taken in by this. Don't get overly caught up by US dollars or by gold, because Jesus will come and destroy the Babylonian power. But have no doubts about this. Europe will accumulate gold. They're doing it now, and they are going to do this according to what the Bible teaches. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel.